What are some of the most terrifying creatures to ever live on this planet? Story 1. Emerald Jewel Wasp. It reproduces by stinging a cockroach and paralyzing it with its venom. As the cockroach goes mad from the venom in its brain, the wasp then bites off the end of its antennas. It then leads the half-paralyzed brain, dead cockroach along by its antenna, using it as a lead towards its burrow. Inside the burrow, it lays eggs inside the roach, then buries it alive. While in its tomb, the larvae will hatch from within the cockroach and over a period of a week feed off of the still alive cockroach. Finally, they will eat its organs, finishing it off, before growing up to go repeat. The process themselves. Answer: tarantula, hawk, cicada. Hawk. There are several in this behavioral category. Terrifying, the lot of them. Also, the pain scale experiment showed that the paralyzing agent in their venom is a catalyst for one of the most painful insect stings on Earth. Edit. To our knowledge, the high level of pain caused by this paralyzing agent in the venom of these insects is strictly a reaction of the human body to it. For the purpose of the experiment performed, we do not know what kind of pain extends to other insects. Story 2. Terror bird, which lived in South America some time ago, was like 3 meters tall version of an emu and had a giant beak which it used to smash its prey to bits and pieces. Also could run pretty fast. Story 3. We lucked out polar bears evolved to live mostly away from society, sans a couple remote places. They would easily ruin a grizzly bear, a lion, a tiger, really any other dominant predator's day. They are the only active species among bears known to actively seek out and eliminate humans. They have huge territories they cover, and they can smell you from far away. Basically, polar bears are the most evolved, up the food chain predators Earth has to offer unless you count humans. Answer: adding a few facts to truly show the terror. They are really smart. If hunting in the tundra of snow and ice, they can follow their prey for days. If they notice that their prey, which occasionally includes humans, is looking back at them, they will cover their black nose with their paw to completely blend into the snow. Most Arctic hunters will make big, large circles when hunting to make sure there aren't any polar bear tracks following them, because it's impossible to see them against the landscape. Some small towns in Alaska and northern Canada will have big, large cages around the exit so that when you walk out, you can turn around and make sure a polar bear isn't sitting on the roof of the store waiting for you to come out. The average polar bear can swim 2 times faster than Michael Phelps, and due to their blubber, they can survive in the Arctic water for hours, sometimes swimming over 50 miles. They've been observed to be eating beach blue and sperm whales regularly. Scientists aren't convinced, but it's possible that they actively hunt these whales out of the water. Also, a polar bear eats so much blubber that their liver is toxic to humans. So basically, they can eliminate you even after they're dead. Edit. Apparently, hiding their noses is a myth. However, they are known for actively hunting humans in the Arctic. Story 4. There's a kind of parasite worm that enters living crickets and mantises and take control of their body. I haven't got any video links for now though, but Googling something like zombie cricket parasite should do it. Answer: you may be thinking of horsehair worms. They lay eggs in water which are then eaten by insects. The eggs hatch and the larvae bore into the main body before basically making the insect seek out water. Once the insect is near water, the larval worms escape to go make more. You sometimes see them coming out of an insect that has been eliminated before reaching water. Here's a fun video. Story 5. Unconventional, but the amount of people mosquitoes have eliminated while being regarded in many places as a mild pest is kind of unsettling. Story 6. While there are plenty of prehistoric things that could eliminate you, I've always had a soft spot for the Dunkleosteus. A 19th long fish with an armor-piercing bite is scary by any metric, but something about the way the creature's head fossilized in a way that lets you know exactly what it looked like when alive is terrifying. Story 7. Cockroaches. They're disease-ridden, suspected or proven carriers for leprosy, bubonic plague, cholera, typhoid fever, leprosy, spread E. coli, and others. Can fly, will likely survive a nuclear war, and can survive headless for up to 7 days before they starve to passing. And they're fudge creepy ugly. Story 8. People joke about Aussie animals all wanting to eliminate you, but 50,000 years ago it was way, way, way worse. There was this marsupial lion thing, like a big cat-bear dog that moved silently, had huge grasping claws, a bite that could crush your skull and it could climb. Once it decided to eat you, you were dinner. And it's the tamest of the lost Aussie predators. There was a 6-meter land crocodile, which is exactly what it sounds like, bad for family picnics, and an equally large lizard related to Komodo dragons and parentes that could probably run as fast as a car, could almost certainly climb. Basically, if it saw you before you saw it, goodbye. We still have a few giant birds, like the emu, and its far more murderous cousin, the cassowary, but back then we had several more, including a 2-meter-high predator, so basically a cassowary velociraptor thing. Then the first Australians arrived and wiped them all out, armed with basically sharp sticks. Most badass people that ever lived IMO, and I thank the gods they got here first every day. Edit. Forgot the enormous snakes and stuff, sorry. Answer. People joke about Aussie animals all wanting to eliminate you, but 50,000 years ago it was way, way, way worse. There was this marsupial lion thing, like a big cat-bear dog that moved silently, had huge grasping claws, a bite that could crush your skull and it could climb. Once it decided to eat you, you were dinner. Love the Thylacoleo. To add to your description, pound for pound, Thylacoleo. Carnifex had the strongest bite of any mammal species, living or extinct. A T. Carnifex weighing 101 kilo, 223 lb, had a bite comparable to that of a 250 kilos African lion, and research suggests that Thylacoleo could hunt and take prey much larger than itself. It also had extremely strong forelimbs with retractable cat-like claws, a trait previously unseen in marsupials. Thylacoleo also possessed enormous hooded claws set on large semi-opposable thumbs, which were used to capture and disembowel prey. Specialized tail bones called chevrons allowed the animal to balance on its back legs and freed the front legs for slashing and grasping. Story 9. Ever seen a 30 centimeter long centipede? Of course you haven't, they don't leave survivors. Legit though, my phobia. Story 10. I have no idea the name, but I remember reading about this parasite that usually cling to fish gills, but will occasionally swim up someone's male body part when he is peeing in the river and suck blood in there. Story 11. Terror birds are pretty nuts. 10 feet tall birds with talons and beaks designed to rip flesh. Extremely powerful and fast. They were the apex predator in South America for millions of years until the continents of North and South America collided and new competition arrived. Imagine an ostrich on steroids with a taste for blood. Story 12. Bedbugs. We got those once and it was a pain in the jerk and a lot of work to get rid of them. And years later I still have PTSD when I think about them. Story 13. There's an aquatic parasite called Symathoa exigua. It enters fish through their gills and finds its way into their mouth, where it bites onto blood vessels on the fish's tongue and causes the tongue to die and fall off. The parasite then latches itself onto the tongue stub where it lives permanently, feeding off the fish blood, and the fish lives the remainder of its life essentially using the cymothoa as a creepy alien-like replacement for its tongue. Here are some pictures for your enjoyment. Story 14. Pablo Escobar, a black bear that ate 40 kilos of cocaine before dying. I don't know about anyone else, but a coked-up bear sounds kind of terrifying to me. Story 15. Moose. Nothing stops the heart quite like coming around a trail bend and coming eye to knee with a moose. Plus, after reading Hatchet as a kid, they scare me. Story 16. Humans. They're the most intelligent beings on this planet. They have powerful weapons capable of wiping out most of life on Earth. Story 17. Humboldt squid are pretty terrifying IMO. Relatively large squid that move quickly in large swarms of over 1,000 of individuals, have suckers, sharp teeth, and beaks known to have attacked humans, and can signal each other by flashing different colors. Imagine being out in the ocean and suddenly a huge group of intelligent, alien-looking, and potentially aggressive creatures emerge out of the depths. No thanks. Story 18. Human beings are scary. We breathe a corrosive gas, drink one of the most potent solvents. Our preferred method of hunting was persistence hunting, where we chased animals until their bodies simply gave up and died. We can eat just about anything we find, which means that we don't need to stop for food when chasing our prey. If we can't find food, that's fine. Our body will simply begin to eat itself so that we don't have to stop chasing our prey. We walk upright, we sweat, we don't have much body hair, which allows us to radiate away our body heat. This means that excessive time or extreme environment won't stop our hunts. If the animal fights back against us, we can take massive damage to our extremities and lose half our blood and still live. Our entire existence is owed to persistence, endurance, and determination. When we put ourselves to a task, it gets done, period. And this instinct is still affecting us today. 332 BC, Alexander the Great hits a stalemate with the fortified island city of Tyre. Instead of going back defeated, he builds a kilometer-long bridge in order to raise the city. 49 BC, Caesar, after defeating the Gauls and invading Britain, turns a political fight into a civil war by invading Italy with only a single legion. He eventually becomes dictator, starting a world superpower whose engineering feats are only recently being broken. 1804 AD. A charismatic French general declares himself emperor and sets off to conquer much of mainland Europe. He is captured, exiled, and then escapes. The soldiers sent to recapture him instead lay down their arms and join him. 1961 AD. One man decides that we will go to the moon, despite much of the technology to do so not even existing yet. Just 8 years later, two humans stand on the surface of the moon and look back. Upon the Earth, 200 years ago, we didn't have railroads. 100 years ago, we didn't have airplanes. 50 years ago, we didn't have spaceflight. 25 years ago, we didn't have the internet. We've already inherited the Earth, and soon we will inherit the stars. And anyone or anything that stands in our way will be eliminated one way or another. Story 19. The tarantula wasp. Females of the species take on tarantulas because their size makes them a perfect meal for the wasp's larger than average offspring. But the spiders flee in terror at the sight of a wasp, their usual threat display of rearing up and baring their fangs failing to have an effect on these females. Story 20. Haast's eagle is the largest eagle known to have existed, and it very likely coexisted with and preyed on humans. It was native to New Zealand and had a wingspan of around 9 feet. Maori legends describe giant birds known as pukai that eliminate and ate humans. Imagine watching an eagle with a 9-foot wingspan swoop down and fly away with a kid. Story 21. This isn't the scariest, but why don't you go ahead and look up what an ant's face close-up looks like? Story 22. Octopuses. I can't believe no said octopuses. They are incredible, intelligent, and strong, man. Creepy, very creepy. I hope I'm dead when they rise up and take over the world. Story 23. Honey badgers. Motherfucking snake bites just knock 'em out. They go straight for the genitals when attacking animals. They can do a full 180 within their skin if grabbed from behind and bite the attacker. Lions don't even fudge with them. Story 24. Irukandji jellyfish. They're clear and so tiny they're nearly invisible, but they cause terrible painful symptoms that not even morphine can help with. Story 25. Megalania. Related to the Komodo dragon. Sure, it may not be alive anymore, but believe me when I say it's the closest thing we've had to a dragon in modern times. It's likely ancient Australians fought these things with burnt spears. Story 26. I think the animal that scares me the most is the chimpanzee. They are like a look into the worst aspects and feelings humans are able to override. The way they fight, scream, and their group mentality versus a single chimp is very similar to a human, and it's brutal. Story 27. Arthropleura. Fudge, that thing. That thing was definitely an alien for those who don't know what it is. Imagine a centipede, except it's 3 meters long and maybe 1 to 3 feet wide. Story 28. Anti-vaxxers. They're literally enabling diseases to make a big comeback. What happens when a really terrible affliction returns in a big way, like smallpox, tuberculosis, or the plague? Story 29. Tardigrades, or water bears for short. The things are freaking aliens. They don't die. Radiation, no. Heat, no. Cold, no. Vacuum, no. Nuclear explosion, no. These things are scary, and in a scenario where they become sentient, they could easily take over the planet and become the dominant species of Earth. Story 30. The mythological Leviathan. Many think it was an aquatic dinosaur of some kind that many believe to be carnivorous and absolutely massive, like orca-sized or larger. Just imagine something like that in the ocean, a massive T-Rex-faced dinosaur possibly swimming around near you. Story 31. Honestly, polar bears. If you come into contact with a large, hungry polar bear, you really have no options other than a big fudge gun. They are faster, bigger, stronger than you. They can smell you from miles away, and will eliminate you if they fancy a light snack. Yeah, you're fudge. Story 32. Conospecius, more commonly known as the cone snail. The thing is, a snail isn't particularly scary. They are small and often ignored. The problem is, most people don't know that a snail can pack as big of a punch as some of this genus do. Although their peak diversity is limited to the Indo-Pacific and African Cape, they have a fairly global distribution in essentially all tropical and subtropical marine systems. They have a lot of venom, and a stab from some of these guys could actually be fatal to a person. That said, watching them stab and slurp up a fish is awesome. Story 33. Parasitic worm. That turns snails into disco zombies to attract birds. The parasite then reproduces in the bird's guts. It's called Leucochloridium, and it's a parasitic worm that invades a snail's eye stalks, where it pulsates to imitate a caterpillar. In biology circles, this is known as aggressive mimicry, organism pretending to be another to lure prey or get itself eaten. The worm then mind controls its host out into the open for hungry birds to pluck out its eyes. The worm breeds in the bird's guts, releasing its eggs in the bird's feces, which are happily eaten up by another snail to complete the whole bizarre life cycle. Story 34. Portuguese man o' war. They're a colonial superorganism, which means they aren't actually one animal but many working together, similar to coral. Their stings are horrendously painful and so potent that only 4 animals can actually eat them. Story 35. Naegleria fowleri, the brain-eating bacteria. You contract it by having water from warm, stagnant southern ponds go up your nose. Story 36. Ophiocordyceps unilateralis. It's a fungus that overrides an ant's brain. It then leads the ant's body towards its colony, where the fungus then sprouts out of the ant's head and spreads its spores, therefore resetting the cycle. Creepy AF, especially since it could potentially adapt to human anatomy. Story 37. Dolphins. Okay, hear me out. Dolphins are usually seen as friendly and kind, smart aquatic mammals, but what people tend to forget is how too human they are. For starters, they're the only second species that have intimacy for fun. First are humans, obviously. You've probably seen some internet videos of a dolphin humping some woman. Haha, very funny, until you dive, no pun intended, deeper. If a female dolphin refuses to mate, the male dolphin would bring his band of horny fuckers into a violation gangbang, raping the female until she dies. Female dolphins aren't any better either. They will literally eliminate their babies just to have intimacy. In conclusion, sharks are scary looking, but at least they're not dolphins. Story 38. Blue-ringed octopi. 1 second you're swimming peacefully, and the next second you got eliminated by a fucking octopus. Story 39. I remember reading about a particular insect in a Disney Adventures magazine from the early 90s. I think it was called a kissing bug, because it would bite you on the lip and give you Chagas disease, which was some horrifying thing that attacked your heart. It was terrifying. Edit. Think I found it. The photo doesn't look like the one from the magazine, but it's still pretty nightmarish. Story 40. Hell pigs, or Terminator pigs, entelodonts, over 2 meters tall. Hunted rhinos. Could eat bones, or pretty much anything else they wanted. Rocks, probably. Super aggressive territorial. Could open their 60-centimeter long jaws to 105. Think giant, angry, hippo warthog bison that wants to eat you. Story 41. The now extinct short-faced bear always fascinated me. I believe it is the largest known mammalian carnivore, land-dwelling, that ever existed. It's like an upsized grizzly, but with proportionally longer legs, which means it could run at high speed and long distances to catch a meal. It wasn't just a sprinter. It went the distance. When standing, a large individual could approach 12 feet, compared to the grizzly's 8-foot standing height. This gives you an idea of this bear's dimensions. Story 42. Candiru, a fish that's really thin that lives in the Amazon River, attracted to urine. If you pee, it'll lodge itself inside your urethra. Also, it has backwards facing barbs to prevent you from pulling it out. Story 43. Humans. We've eliminated, maimed, and destroyed ecosystems as we consume resources at an unparalleled rate. Story 44. Sweet little old blue-haired church ladies. They find refuge in people's desire to show respect to their elders, and they wear the most perfect of disguises, but within the context of their places of worship, They are cutthroat in the extreme. You have been warned. Story 45. Komodo dragons. They are equally cool as hell as they are terrifyingly smart. I was watching a nature documentary once, and this group of 3 or 4 Komodo dragons ganged up on an ox or water buffalo, but they didn't have enough strength to fully take it down. So what did they do? They followed it around for the next few weeks as the venom from their bites slowly eliminated, and then it finally died, and they had a fudge feast. Story 46. There was a BBC series called Walking with Beasts in the early 200s. There was one episode dedicated to the terror birds of South America. Imagine 10 ft tall meat, eating ostriches stalking prey through tall grass. Story 47. Surely it has to be the megalodon, the extinct great white shark, but like 5 times the size. A ship-sized great white. Story 48. Half of everything that lives in the ocean can induce severe anxiety into every normal human being. Most of it tastes about how it looks. Story 49. Humans. We've made entire animal kingdoms extinct, changed the paths of rivers, made land from the sea, leveled mountains, and on at least 2 occasions we effectively dropped the heat of the sun on a city. And we did all that with crap eyes, crap hearing, wonky knees, fragile backs, baby teeth, and no claws. Story 50. Cordyceps, the mind control fungi. There's said to be millions of species, each specializing in a different invertebrate. In each invertebrate, they take over the brain and direct it to find somewhere high up, whereupon the fruiting body bursts from the bug's head and releases spores to infect more. Many creatures, especially ants, that are regularly affected, learn to recognize the behavior of mind-controlled brethren and will carry them, against their will, hundreds of meters away from a nest to eliminate the colony. Story 51. Well, not creatures, but they are living. Cordyceps. Humans are rarely original when it comes to thinking up terrifying things. The zombie apocalypse is no exception. I give you cordyceps, a form of fungus that has a most curious method of reproduction. You see, it's no normal fungus. Their spores infect more mobile living creatures than themselves. For example, there is a form of cordyceps. They're all species-oriented, that infects ants. Early symptoms of an infection are erratic behavior and disorientation. This is such a potential scourge that the ants have evolved to actually evict the infected ant and take it as far away from the colony as possible. If they didn't, the next phase would almost certainly wipe the colony out. Now we get into the real fudge nightmare. Remember that disorientation? Oh yes, now it's full-blown mind control by the cordyceps fungus. This mind control will force the ant to climb up and seek higher ground before the fungus sprouts its mushroom, eliminate the ant in the process. After it sprouts to full length, it explodes in spores, and if the other ants didn't carry the infected far enough away, it begins anew in the next individuals, eventually ending in mass graveyards of ant carcasses at the tops of blades of grass with mushrooms growing out of their heads. Nightmare. Fuel. Story 52. There used to be a frickin' animal that was sort of like a Loch Ness monster that was a meat eater. It could swim like a shark and walk on land in search for food. If that still was alive, oh hell no. Story 53. I'd argue humans are the most terrifying. I mean, look at how we treat other life on this planet. We literally enslave animals. We burn down animal habitats. From every other life on Earth, we'd definitely be the most terrifying threat. Story 54. A bufo toad is pretty bad. It's not exactly scary, except that here in Florida, it's a killer of puppers because the liquid it secretes is very deadly. Story 55. The thing that eats a fish's tongue then stay in the fish's mouth as its tongue and eats it food, horror. Story 56. Humans. As far as I know, we're the only ones who eliminate for sport, and because it makes some of us feel good. Story 57. Man-O-War could count as a single creature even though it's made up of many creatures. Super scary shoot. Story 58. I'm from the UK, so we don't have many dangerous animals. But I'd say our most dangerous animal, in my opinion, are seagulls. Around here, they're vicious little fuckers, not even little as some are the size of massive dogs. Recently been some seagulls snatching small dogs away and attacking kids cause they're territorial birds. They're one of my biggest fears. Story 59. I would say the Liopleurodon, if that's the right name. Those giant prehistoric swimming creatures that put sharks to shame. They are terrifying. Just imagine swimming in the water knowing they could be swimming below you. Story 60. Brontoscorpio. Imagine a meter-long scorpion with a stinger the size of a light bulb. Pretty creepy stuff. Story 61. There is a species that is really weird. They are actually quite complex if you think of it. They have little groups, but what is weird is that they eliminate each other. Not all of them, most of them don't, but many of them. It's all over the news where I live. These creatures are called humans, and they can disgust me. Story 62. If we're counting past creatures too, I'd say the megalodon. Think a great white shark the size of a city bus. This thing would have predated Tyrannosaurus. Fudge stop and think about that for a minute. Story 63. The Viagra spider. Not even joking, if you get bit by these things, they will give you painful hours-long arousal. Story 64. Gators and crocs are such efficient killers that they basically stopped evolving millions of years ago. And they have a rare capability to hunt in and out of water. Story 65. Humans. They bomb, violation, and take down themselves and other species of animals in the most imaginative ways possible. Story 66. I'm about 95 sure that